Welcome, everyone. I'm Rowan, and I'm here with Steve Purvis, and we are going to talk about MyST Markdown today and writing scientific papers completely in Markdown and connecting them up to data, code, and Jupyter Notebooks. And this webinar is part of the Love Data Week series. So if you're here from that, welcome. And so, yeah, I'll sort of just get started with things. Yeah. So today, we're going to be going through and writing a paper with MyST Markdown. So first, I'm going to give a bit of a background on MyST and how to get set up with the open source tools, start with a Markdown document, build a website, see a live preview, go over a few of the basics of improving that document, exporting it out to PDF and LaTeX and Word documents, and then working with Jupyter Notebooks and data and bringing that all together into sort of a reproducible workflow, and then getting that work out to the world very fast. So just a quick note, this event is being recorded. The recording will be posted afterwards. And so if your talk or are on video, you'll also be seen in the recording. We'll probably turn the recording off for the Q&A just in case people don't want to be recorded. And so that'll be the last 10 minutes. But if you do have questions, please feel free to use the Zoom chat. And Steve will be monitoring that and interrupting me and asking questions and bringing those to the forefront. So thank you, Steve. Okay, so MyST Markdown is part of the Executable Books project, which is it's an organization and a project that was funded by the Sloan Foundation to develop computational narratives around Jupyter Notebooks. And the MyST project has come out of that, and we at CurveNote are part of the team that are working on this project. And one of the main projects that the Executable Books team is working on is called Jupyter Book, which some of you might have heard of. And the main goal of that is to turn Markdown and notebook documents into websites. And this is excellent for sharing tutorials and course content and reproducible documents. And the underlying engine that does that is Sphinx, which is a documentation engine in the Python ecosystem. And one of the things that we've learned as we've gone along is that we want more than just websites, as we also want to be able to publish these documents in sort of a more traditional academic scientific publishing sense. And we want PDF documents that are really high quality. Maybe we want Word documents with LaTeX. We want these to be interactive, and we want the data out of them, as well as live code as well. And possibly if we're going all the way through the scientific workflow, thinking about structured data in JATS, which is used in scientific publishing. And we also want this in Jupyter, and we want this in VSCode, and we want it to be super fast. And some of the original constraints that we have on working on the Sphinx documentation engine are starting to come into the question here. And so today I'm going to be talking about all that cool science communication stuff and being able to export out into many, many different formats and templates. And this is what we're going to be going through today. And I will also be showing off a Jupyter Lab MyST extension, which allows you to use MyST Markdown natively in Jupyter Lab. And it's super fast, and it's called MystJS. And so that is what we'll be using today. And so what MystJS does is it looks at all of your documents, your Markdown and notebook documents, and parses them into something that is structured data. And so I'll show this a tiny bit, but there's a community process for improving that specification that's stewarded by the Executable Books project. And once we get that into the structured data, we can export it out into many, many different types of formats and use it in many different types of ways. And so that's MyST, markedly structured text. So community-driven tools for the future of technical communication and publishing. And so with that, that is a bit of a background on MyST, and the rest of the sort of 50 minutes is going to be going through a live demo of getting set up and going through all of these different pieces, and we'll start that right away. Okay. So if you go to myst.tools.org and then go to the guide, you'll see a lot of different places to get up and going. We're going to be mostly focused on creating scientific publications in this webinar. And so if you're going through this later on your own, you can go through, install, start getting set up on the website, and then we'll be sort of jumping into the middle of this tutorial. And so these few examples are things that you can go through on your own of installing the MyST CLI. We use Node as the package manager here. And so running that command will get you the MyST CLI installed. And then this demo is going to be going through some content that we've created in this MyST.js quick start Git repository. And so I've already done these first two examples, and this optional step we're going to sort of go through as we go through the tutorial. Awesome. Okay, so just in terms of showing you what we're starting with, we are starting with this this Git repository that has nothing special in it. It's just a few Markdown documents, and then there is a paper about MyST here, and this is just a little bit of content that we are going to use so that we don't have blank PDF and Word documents. But there's some figures in here, and some examples and some references that are written out in text. And so what we'll be doing in this webinar is going through and improving this, and then also integrating it with the Jupyter Notebook in this case, which has some interactive figures, as well as some other figures that we might want to pull into our documents and show. And so with that, I'm going to jump over into VSCode, which is the editor that I use for, especially with Markdown, and then we'll jump into Jupyter Lab in a second as well. And so the first thing to do here is just to run MyST, which just gets us up and running with a MyST project. And so if we just go into the command line and type MyST, it will welcome us to the CLI. And then it has also created this MyST YAML document, which is just creates some metadata for the project that we're going to fill in as we go. And then the next thing it asks us to do is if we want to start the website now, and I'm going to just hit enter, and that does go through and creates the website. If this was running for the first time, you also have to download and install some of the website theme, but that should all happen automatically in the background. And so this is what happens when you say MyST start in your terminal. It brings up the website on localhost, and you can see here that it's already doing a pretty good job of rendering things, and a little bit better than that preview that we saw on GitHub, in that these are starting to become interactive visualizations. And again, that interactive, or that histogram here, is also seen. And so in sort of the next steps of this, we're starting to see that some of the rendering isn't great here, and we want to do a little bit better on things like references. It's pretty annoying that we have to type out the references by hand here. And so we'll go through and start to improve the structure of this document. And the way to do that is to use front matter. And so to do front matter in Markdown, generally it's a YAML block at the start of a Markdown document. And so we're going to put in the title and just bring it over here. And when we hit save, this is going to live reload over on this side of the screen. And so I'll sort of have your eyes over here as we change this. And in this case, this is the subtitle of the document. And so I'm going to come over here and say subtitle and put it in and hit save. And you can see that this is starting to change a few milliseconds later as we're actually saving the document. And I'm going to go through and, well, I'm actually going to make this a little bit shorter and say this is the subject of the document, and hit save. And you can see that there's some special pieces of this that are starting to come up on that side. And so I'm going to bring the author information over and say author and just put my name in there, and you can see it's showing up there. And we actually want to make this my name, and we can also put affiliation in here as well and bring this information in there as well. And if we hit save, we can see that that's starting to show up, and we can start to remove these pieces of information up here. If you do have more than one author, you can just turn this into a list in YAML, and that works the same for affiliations. It just recognizes the string that's separated by semicolons in this case. And so this is equivalent information. And so the other piece I'm going to bring in here is the license, and put it in there. And you can see here that this is actually raised a warning and saying that this is interpreting it as a specific type of CC BY license. And it is giving us a link to the Creative Commons website here. And so we can maybe change that as well. 4.0 over there, just to get rid of that warning. And that is starting to use this front matter that is really starting to improve the structure and look of this document. But this is also adding this information as structured data, such that we can make use of this in downstream applications and exports. And so here we can see that we've added information about the author. Maybe I also want to add the ORCID ID, maybe. And so I'm going to just do an ORCID search for Rowan. I can quickly type this. I don't know my ORCID ID offhand, but this nifty command line tool for ORCID does work. And so we can bring this in here and say ORCID, which is a identifier system for scientists and researchers. And you can see that that's started to bring that information in nicely, and that'll show up in any of the other templates that I use. And so if I also want to put an email in there, that also brings a nice little icon over here and brings up a mail to link over in your email provider. And so this is starting to look like a quite professional front matter, and that is great. So the next thing in the webinar that I want to show you, so I'm just going to reorient myself a little bit. So we've gone through and improved the front matter, and so that if we're following along, you can start to bring this in, and maybe we'll just add one more thing with the keywords. I don't think this actually shows up in the book theme right now, but that will actually show up in some of the other templates that we're going to be using in a second. Awesome. Okay, so sorry, I am actually going to add this abstract block. This is going to be something that doesn't show a visual change right now, but will later this week. And so this is changing this block to let the MyST know that this is an abstract specifically. Awesome. Okay, so the next step that we're going to sort of just quickly show you is how to export this out to docx, to a Word document. And to do that, we add the export key, and we can just say docx here and hit save. And then we can go into the command line, and say MyST build, MyST space build, and just give it a docx flag. You don't actually have to do that, but if we do give that flag, that will specifically ask for only the docx parts of sort of filter out and only do the docx exports. And so I'm going to open that up, and we can see that with very little changes, we can get out a pretty nice looking Word document directly from the Markdown document that is bringing together all of the different parts of that workflow. Awesome. Okay, so there's a couple other things that I would like to change. I want to make these citations a little bit more interactive. And so in this case, we are actually creating a reference, a text-only reference at the bottom of our document. And if we go and look at that, there's all sorts of things that could be improved with this. The DOI isn't actually a link in this case. And in this other reference, it's not even tagged as a DOI. And so a DOI is a digital object identifier. And so if we go to doi.org and bring that link in, it actually will go and point to the publication. And MyST can use this to there's the text citation that I want to replace, to actually just change this into a link, which is using the Markdown link syntax. And in this case, that has changed that. There we go. Oh, I did my Markdown link incorrectly. I'm sorry. There we go. This has now changed that into a citation, which we can click on. And then it has also given you a little bit more information, such that you can actually click on that, see the DOI right there. And this has been auto created. And if we don't want to include the text as well, we can actually remove that. And that automatically includes that reference as well. And then the other thing that it does is it brings the references section down in the bottom and formats this a little bit nicer. And then all of these references will be available in other places as well. And so I'm going to just do this for the other citation quickly, which is using this DOI. And if we come over here and just create that DOI reference, we can use the shortcut in this case and just say DOI : and hit save. And if we search for that over here, we can see that that reference is showing up in real time. And what's nice about that now is that we can actually delete all of this and not worry about the reference sections anymore, and just have links to the DOI, and that will be exported nicely in all of the documents as well. And so maybe I'll just show you that quickly with the docx export. And so if we open that up again, we can see that our reference sections now have these nice formatted links in our Word document, which is great. So that's a little bit about adding citations and how easy that is in MyST Markdown, and it gives you these interactive references to do. And there's a whole lot more information on citations and bibliography and different ways that you can bring in external information. And so
We've got a question just on how do you do reference citations to things that are not online? So if you don't have a DOI.
So if they don't have a DOI, you can use a bibliography part in your Markdown, in your YAML, MyST YAML file. And this can automatically picks up every bibtec file. So if you have a reference manager, most of them can export into bibtec, which is a common reference management format. And then you can just say my bib.bib, my file.bib over here. And this can either be a local file or it can be an online link as well. And so with that, you can read through the documentation over here, and that'll give you some other ways to cite those and bring those in. And so that should be yeah, pretty easy. And Steve dropped a link into the chat as well. Awesome. Okay. Great. So the next piece that we're going to do is do a little bit more improvement on the figures. And so similar to what we did with the references over here is we're thinking of how to bring as much contextual information as close as possible in the reading experience, so that when someone's reading your work, they can just see the reference, click on it, bring it up. And that same sort of experience should be possible for figures and equations and tables. And so we're going to do a little bit of work to bring this sort of experience into the markup experience as well. And so if we go over into this figure over here, we're going to introduce a little bit of MyST syntax, which is using a directive. And this is where I have installed a VSCode extension for MyST, and you can search in the extensions in VSCode. And I'm going to type figure over here. And in this case, this tells us a little bit about that directive. And by directive, I mean it is a environment that's either starts with these triple backticks or triple colons, and then you start typing the name of the directive, and then it has some required arguments and possible options for that directive. And so in this case, the required argument is the source of the figure. So if I let that complete, so I'm going to bring the source up here, and that is now the argument of the directive. And I'm just going to close this directive block and hit save and show you what that looks like. And so that is now over here. And man, it doesn't look any different. Under the hood, it is different. It is now actually, instead of an image and a paragraph, it's a figure and a fig caption block. And we're going to change that a little bit more. And we're going to give this a label so that we can refer to it in other places. And we're just going to use the same name as that. And then I've also deleted that fig1 as well. And it's not called label, it's called name. And that will be fixed up later this week, actually. And you can see here that this has also improved the style. So this is a bit more muted compared to the main text, as well as it has a link that gets you to the top of the figure. And so the other piece that we want to do is actually make this text actually link to that figure and show a preview. And so in that case, I'm going to take the name of the figure, and I'm going to use that as a target link, which is very similar. So what you might see here is we're going to use that part of the link to actually link through to that figure. And so if we hit save here, you can see now that that's turned into a dynamic reference and sort of an interactive reference to that figure. And that's really helpful if you're in a long document and you're referring to equation 15 and you've forgotten what equation 15 was. You can just click it and that brings it up. And then you can always click the link over here and that brings you to the main place that figure is defined. And so I am just going to quickly do that for the rest of these images as well. And so, I don't know, Steve, if you want to do a bit of a summary, maybe.
I was just answering questions on citations, because you can almost everything gets. I think almost everything will output to BibTeX, which means you can bring citations in from any reference manager, and then instead of that DOI syntax, there's a separate directive, quite similar to LaTeX, really, in a way where you'd have a cite directive that allows you to like reference the tag used in the BibTeX in order to add it to your Markdown. But like Rowan's saying, it's on the sort of figure and equation referencing. The idea is to take Markdown from base Markdown up to a level that you'd expect from the sort of like a LaTeX document, where you have all the cross-referencing, you have numberings taken care of, and all that sort of cross-linking and semantic linking in the document is sort of, you're able to produce that in Markdown, so that when you go out to different formats, whether that be the web or specific template, those templates can then just render up your content in the appropriate way. And in the web experience, which is really MyST CLI is sort of producing a first-class web-based version of your article, and you're also using that as your sort of writing and sort of preview environment, then that all of that cross-linking, you can just take it to another level, because you get these lovely hover effects and things like that. And I think over time we're going to see more themes appear for the website. So you'll start to see different layouts with different sort of reading styles and things to help you read in different ways appearing. But right now we have the sort of single book theme that Rowan's showing. Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's quite interesting things you can do. I don't know if you've got any examples in here, but sometimes you follow a figure reference, and then that figure has a caption that also has a link to something else, which also then pops up. So when you have really sort of linked information, you're able to follow those references through without scrolling away, which is just very cool very cool, and exactly what the web-based format helps you do.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Steve. I think so. At this stage in the tutorial, we've gone through and we've added improvements to the front matter. We've added citations. We've now improved these figure references, and we've also done a bit of an export preview of the docx, which was quite easy to do by just adding that flag in there. And the next piece that we want to do is actually export to a PDF document. And so at this stage, there's actually about I think 400 and so journals that MyST supports, and those are from a number of different templates. There's about 15 or so LaTeX templates out there. And so the way that MyST supports all of these different journals is, again, using that structured information that we're starting to add into the Markdown experience, and then using templates and themes to actually show that information in different ways. And so at this time, I'm just going to go into this MyST templates and just list them out here. Maybe make this a tiny bit larger. And so if I say MyST templates list, that's going to give us all of the different themes that are available right now. And so as Steve was saying, the website is actually this book theme, and you can see that this is for a site. This one's for docx. Over here, these ones are LaTeX documents. And so I can actually filter out the all of the LaTeX documents in this case. And you can see here that there are quite a few LaTeX documents already. And if we maybe want to jump into one of these a little bit more, AGU is the American Geophysical Union, and they have quite a few specific requirements for their LaTeX template. And so if we just list those requirements here, maybe make this a tiny bit bigger, you can see that it has different parts required, as well as different options as well. And so here we can have the journal name, a few key points, if it's in draft mode or not. And this part abstract is what we did actually before, is we're denoting that this part is actually an abstract, and that is required. And so a lot of these parts are the same are the same, have the same key across many different templates, so that you can actually use the data once, or use your content once, and then export to many different types of templates. And so we are going to change this export into an exports list. And so I'm going to add an S there, and I can say docx, and I can also say PDF to start with. And so now we're going to say MyST build, and just give it the PDF flag as well. And so that will find a few things. It's saying that we're missing a date, so maybe I'll put that in right now as well. Hit save, and while I was doing that, that actually created the PDF. So what this was doing, it translates into LaTeX, and then it uses LaTeX on your system, and so you do need LaTeX to be installed. And then MyST is doing some error reporting around that, and trying to improve the experience of LaTeX as well. And so here we can actually open up that PDF document to show a preview. And the default template right now is the curve note template. And you can see here that that's picked up on the abstract, it's picked up on the keywords, it's picked up on the author and affiliation, as well as the date that we put in there. And all of these different things are starting to be linked. We can see that figure 1 is linked, and that brings you to figure 1, as well as all of the different references in here are all pulled together. And so this is a pretty good format. If we wanted to change formats quickly, we can also do that. And so I'm going to show you that. So this is the format is PDF, and then we want to change the template. And again, if we go into MyST templates list for the tech, we can pick any one of these. Maybe we'll want something that's super plain. So if we go and build that, we can show that quickly. And you can see here, I haven't actually used that template before. And so it's going to query the MyST API and then fetch that template, bring it in locally, and then render that document. And we can open that up again. And we can see here, this is the sort of vanilla LaTeX template with really wide margins and page numbers and figures, and then references as well. And so I'm going to show a new template that we've been starting to integrate into the MyST ecosystem, which is called preprint. And this is a really nice looking preprint template. And so I'll show you that in a second. And it's really good for exporting it to archive or bioarchive or medRxiv. And it does take a little bit longer to render, but hopefully it'll all work. There it goes. And so this is the template. I do notice here that maybe we should remove that emoji, just because that's maybe slightly better for if you're doing professional things. Looks better though with an emoji. We'll fix that up at some point, I'm sure. So here you can see that the corresponding author has been linked in, the keywords are in the margin. You can also add other things about data availability and some other pieces for that template specifically. And then we can also look at some of the options. I actually do want to add one option to this. And so if we list out the preprint options, we can see here that we actually have a few different pieces. So we could maybe add a data availability statement, and I feel like that is appropriate given it is Love Data Week. And so we will throw that in here, and we will write a not good data availability statement. So please do better than this. So maybe instead of on author request, it should be on API request. But now if we actually build this, we're going to see that where this data availability part shows up. And then I'm going to also add one other piece. Maybe the theme color, we actually want red instead of blue. And so here we can say red up here. I don't need the quotes in YAML. And so I'll show you quickly what that looked like over here. We can see that the data availability statement has come through in the margin, and it's looking really nice. And then I'm going to do that one other change by turning this into a red version of the document, and then we can move on. Awesome. So that will take another second, but a lot of these different options are all available through the through the MyST CLI, and that's querying that template and then showing that in a nice way on the command line. And so
very cool.
This is all red now, which is great. So it's basically submission ready.
So that's the big thing there. That what you've just done is taken out one piece of content, and by focusing on the content and just and using the sort of web view as a preview, you've been able just to go out and target completely different layouts. And then all of these things that we're seeing in the MyST Markdown, like the front matter and all these parts, so these blocks marked at parts, they allow you to then control and mark different parts of your content for different purposes, depending on which journal you hit. And the MyST CLI, really, the design idea is to sort of go as far as it can to make it easy to target a given template. That's why we've got that sort of query mechanism, and it tries to be really helpful in bringing you back information on which options are available, which ones are required, all to try to make this part as fast as possible.
Yeah, and I think in the future we'll even start to have some validation in here. In terms of it already does, like, for example, if I say that, that's going to actually start having some validation over here and say it can be blue or red, not red one. And so that information does propagate through. I think what is really interesting here is that we can start to improve things like competing interest, and maybe even look at the structures of these things and say that if your author should have ORCID for this this journal or this template at least. And so it's a way to sort of improve the structure and the amount of metadata that's available in these documents as you're writing them. Fantastic. Okay, I think, let me just reorient myself on where we're at.
While I do that, I'll just drop a link into the chat. All those templates that we were looking at by the command line tool, they all live in an open repo on GitHub. It's possible to create your own templates, make those open and share them with the entire MyST community, as well as using them yourself for your own publications. And that's something that we'd love to grow and help people set their own templates up, so that from MyST you can target any journal or conference that you like.
Awesome.
Cool.
I think the only last piece that I want to show on the export side before I move on to a quick preview of the Jupyter Notebooks is exporting it to LaTeX as well. And so, as you might imagine, that is as easy as throwing another export in the list. If you do want that to be to share the same options, which is probably the case if you're doing this, you can say tech here. And so if you misbuild, and we'll just do it without the flag this time, and you can see that this, oh, we do need the flag there. Or sorry, I think we by default only build the site, and you have to have MyST build all, and that will actually go through and build all of the different exports. And so maybe just to clean up the logs a tiny bit, I'm just going to build the tech, and you can see that this one is actually much faster. And so if we look at what the LaTeX has created. This is pulling you together a folder with all of the different pieces has brought in the ORCID link and the like that email icon, as well as my name, and it's put everything in the right place. And so this is now actually a LaTeX document that is relatively easy to use. This is very similar to LaTeX that I would write if I was writing LaTeX anymore. And so if you do need to sort of eject from the MyST at some point in your workflow, this gets you over into LaTeX that is very human readable. The other thing that you might want is to actually put that in a zip file. And so if you just say output as paper.zip, then that actually you can put that anywhere, but that brings that paper zip file, which is just a zip file of that export folder as well. And then the other piece that you can always do is you can say PDF plus tech, and if we build the PDF in this case, that will go through and make sure that that clean PDF build is in your exports folder here, and you can see this is paper_PDF tech, as well as the paper.pdf that's in your exports folder. Fantastic. So where we ended on that was a nice looking PDF document that is can also be zipped up as a LaTeX file and directly submitted to archive if you want to do that.
Cool.
Wonderful. Okay, the very last thing that I want to show today is is sort of a quick preview of working with notebooks and integrating computational content into your documents. And so many of you maybe might be familiar with Jupyter. And so this is Jupyter Lab. And the only thing different about this is we've installed the MyST extension for Jupyter Lab, and that gives us that same abilities that we have in MyST directly in Jupyter Lab. And so that means that you can have that same sort of notebook content, that front matter content over here. And we can also have content that shows important information in that same way as we did before. And so we can turn this into something that is important, and that will show directly in the notebook. And so you can turn things into drop downs, for example. And now this is a drop down, which is interactive in the notebook, and all of the features, almost all of the features now that are working in MyST are also working in this extension. And the final thing that I want to show is actually getting these outputs into the PDF document that we are working on, as well as the website. And so I've used this comment syntax up here to actually label this cell. This is just to make it slightly more visible. It also works if you add, I think it's cell metadata specifically to that, but that's a little bit cumbersome at this stage. But once you actually label this cell, you can bring that label, and we go back to the paper that we were working on, maybe down at the bottom. We want to bring in another figure from notebook. And instead of the source being an image on disk, we're just going to bring that figure in with that target command, and we're going to label this something else and say plasma maybe, and then go back over to our paper, and hopefully, it helps if you actually save the document. That will show up over here. And so that what that means is that I can change this. And so I think there's maybe a different blues maybe. Okay, and we hit save over there. Right now we actually have to hit save on the paper as well for that to show up. But then this actually comes all the way through. And so what that means is that we can build our PDF again, and this goes through, rebuilds that document, and I'm going to show you one more time, and then move on to sharing this with the wider community. Awesome. And so in your PDF now, that histogram is showing up. That would also show up in your Word document as well. Fantastic. Okay, the very last thing is actually how to get this off of localhost 3000 and share this as a website. And for this part of the demo, I'm going to use the CurveNote CLI to actually deploy it. And I'm going to choose a website or a domain to deploy to. And this I have set up before the webinar. And all I've done there is actually hook up my my personal website and this domain over here. And now we can say CurveNote deploy. And this will look at that domain and ask us to confirm that we are actually getting this out to the web. And then that will go through and upload all of the various files, which it needs to. And a few seconds later, hopefully, we will have a website that we can share. Okay, cool. There it is. We have a website that we can share with the wider world. And so this, again, has that figure from Notebook down at the bottom, and then all of the interactive figures remain interactive. And this is on my personal website as a project that I can start to share. And if you're interested in customizing some of these themes, that's all possible. And we'll probably have another webinar in the future that goes through more of the website customization as well.
Cool.
Fantastic.
So there's a quick question there from Stephen saying, will the font size and text of images from the notebook match the text of the article? And I think, for example, in this case, we've got a matplotlib plot. So any of the text and the title and stuff there will be baked into that image. So in cases like this, then no, you'd have to align the font in the notebook itself, because that's baked into the image.
Yeah, for the title here, that's certainly the case. This part of the figure caption is part of the wider document, and so it is a bit of a mix depending on where the content's coming from.
I think if you're working in this way, you still have to have your sort of mindset on I'm doing figure creation. So being mindful of things like the DPI of the image, you might want to boost that. And then the font sizes and making it all sort of legible so it works in the article. But the great thing is it's really easy to tweak now, because you can just go back, be fiddling in the notebook and immediately have a round trip and get it back into your article quickly. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. There's also another question about using GitLab or GitHub pages for the deployment. As of today, that's not possible. Hopefully in the next month and a half, we'll improve the deployment options for MyST. Just as a bit of a history, MyST came out of the CurveNote CLI. And so over the last sort of 2 months, we've been working with the executable books community to upstream this into the MyST community. And so some of the functionality is still lagging behind as we're sort of completing that upstream push. Awesome.
Cool.
Okay. I think
one thing on the GitHub side is, no, you can't use the GitHub pages for deployment right now. But for example, here you're working in a local folder, and this can totally be put into Git. And there is a GitHub action that will help you auto deploy to CurveNote sites, which are free and available to use as well. But that can be automated along with your version control. You're using version control to collect. Cool. And the last thing I was going to say was, I mean, we focused on creating that paper and linking one article into the manuscript. Sorry, linking one figure into the manuscript. But the notebook, the entire notebook, is part of the site as well. MyST understands the entire notebook and will render that up in the same way. So you can totally bring in multiple notebooks and work there too, especially when you've got the MyST extension installed.
Yeah, so I think that goes to our vision, and I think a lot of the things that are being talked about at Love Data Week is sharing more of science, and in that push into open science is sharing more of the sort of all of the notebooks and code and data behind the actual papers that people are publishing. And so MyST is the community that we're involved in, sort of pushing in trying to wrap all these things up and give you a nice way to host those documents and get them out to the world. All right, I'm going to maybe wrap up this part of the webinar. And so, and then we'll have some Q&A after, which will be off camera if other people want to come on. And so thank you so much for coming. Please go and try out MyST. You can go to myst.tools.org/sandbox to get a web-only preview of just understanding the web syntax. All of the docs are in js.mysttools.org. And if you're interested in hosting some of these for your lab group or a community or journal, that's what we do at CurveNote. And feel free to join our CurveNote Slack if you want, as well as follow us on Twitter at CurveNote and MyST Tools. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you.